Got to read between the lines. Got to read between the lines.
Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of What's Going On. I'm your host, Tom DeAmbra. As always, we're very thankful you take the time from your busy day to join us. Folks, been a lot going on in the last week. If you've been watching the programs, we're going to continue with our research on the document Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Last week, unfortunately, there was so much news that I shared with the viewing audience that we didn't get to go too deep into this document. And I'm hoping that we'd be able to complete this today because in the weeks to come, we're going to be broadcasting a fantastic, well-done documentary by the name of Mind Control. You're going to find some very interesting things in it. It does coincide with the document that we're talking about now, which is Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And as I've been telling everybody, if you wish to look this document up, I highly recommend that you do not do it on your personal computer because you will be flagged. Obviously, we're all flagged today. After all, we're all the terrorists. The American people, as you know from watching this program, have been declared the enemy of the state with the 1933 Trading with the Enemies Act and the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, actually declared the United States a battleground. So we're all on a list per se, but if you want to be on a higher list or you wish not to be, obviously, I recommend that you go to the public library or some other public computer and look up this document. A couple of things I wanted to talk about before we get into this is the idea and the facts of the Obamacare program, the health care, or lack of health care, I should say. I actually was listening in my vehicle to a conversation between two media people, and they actually mentioned the word death panels about Obamacare. Now, if you've been watching this program, you know that we didn't break the entire document down, but we did do a quick summary on it, and some of the highlights were just what are these death panels, and these death panels are working like this, and I'm going to try to give you an example of it. Let's say you're an elderly man, let's say you're 83 years old, and you have a cardiac history or a pulmonary history or an oncology history, and you break your hip and you need a hip replacement and or surgery to repair that wound. My friends, it's a scoring. This is how it works. It's all scoring, and if you do not make that score because of pertinent medical history, you are not going to be eligible for that surgery to repair the hip. And what will take place, my friends, is that you will not be able to get out of bed and you will pass away from pneumonia. A lot of people, I'm in the medical field, and literally a lot of elderly people, when they fracture their hip, the thing that actually in the end winds up killing them is the fact that they're unable to get out of bed in time and their lungs fill with fluid. And that's just a small example of it. So when they talk about death panels, this is a scoring mechanism to whether or not you're going to be able to have the health care. And also what you're going to be doing with the information between you and your doctor. The doctor is no longer going to say to himself, well, I have these signs, I have these symptoms, so I'm going to run these tests. No, he's going to go to a government book and says, okay, these are my signs, these are my symptoms. These are the tests I'm allowed to run, not what I desire to run. And of course, all your medical information now is going to be shared with the government and private industry. So it's the end of, first of all, it's 7%, 1/7, I'm sorry, of the gross domestic product of the country that the government's taken over. And second of all, the bill was written by insurance companies and Big Pharma. My friends, and coming along with this is another document that we've covered, and that's Codex Alimentarius, where, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's true, you want vitamin C, you're going to have to get a prescription. You want vitamin B12, you're going to have to get a prescription. And a lot of homeopathic, non-pharmacological medicines are not going to be allowed. In other words, natural herbs and so forth, body cleansers, things like this are not going to be allowed with Codex Alimentarius. And don't say it'll never happen here. It has already happened in other countries, including Australia. So, understand what this is all about. And the other thing I want you to understand, my friends, is that the government has to eliminate the private industry of the insurance, which the insurance companies want anyway. It's just like people that have rental properties, and all of a sudden, boy, they want to get that Section 8 housing. Why? Because even though the government is trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, the checks are still good by force of hand. So it's going to be the same way with the medical insurance, because the government, no matter what industry you're speaking of, has never been able to and will not be able to compete with private industry. And so they have to eliminate the private industry. They want a single-payer system. This is not happening by mistake. Folks, think of this. They can create a computer system where they can monitor every single communication, every purchase. They have your face recognition systems. They have portfolios on everybody, but they cannot put together a simple site that you can enlist or sign up for coverage. They just can't do it. Even though you've been paying for it for the last 2.5 years. Oh, and now they're saying, well, we're going to get this up and running by next year. Guess what, folks? Have they quit taking the money out of your pocket? Absolutely not. You're going to be paying this for 3.5 years before you receive any benefit. That is, if you think you're going to be receiving benefits. My friends, if you think medical care is expensive now, you wait till it's free. You're going to see just how free it's not. Okay, let us continue. I had to talk about this knockout game that is going on throughout the United States, particularly in the urban areas. And if you're not familiar with the knockout game, I invite you to go on the internet, and you can see some very disturbing and horrific images of people just walking down the street or walking down sidewalks, and black youths, and this is pretty much, this is all in urban settings, and this is the article I want to get into, how the New York Times and NPR are covering up the facts that this is a quote-unquote people of color game, if you would. I don't like using the word game. It is a vicious attack. And what they're doing is people will be walking down the street innocently enough, no provocation at all, and all of a sudden these youths, and they're black youths, will strike and knock out the person. That's where they get the name knockout game. The idea is that you're going to sucker punch the victim, and they are victims, and if you knock them out, you win the game. And if they don't knock them out, well, you don't win the game. It's very disturbing, but it just goes along more, and this is a really good article. It was put out by Larry Eider. It's called The Knockout Game. New York Times and NPR say no big deal. The knockout game, and the media underreporting of it combines with the breakdown of the family with the media's condescending determination to serve as a public relations bureau for blacks. The game is a dare in which a young man, all the perps appear to be male people of color, I guess white's not a color anymore in our society, mostly blacks, try to literally knock out innocent bystanders with one blow. Both National Public Radio and the New York Times say these reports are knockout games being widespread. They're overblown and do not represent a trend. Now, I am very disturbed by this. And I will tell you why, because as I'm reading this article, I have 34 cities that are listed here in this article where arrests have been made for it. This is a trend, and it is a barometer of the breakdown of the fabric of our society. My friends, we are at the point where we're actually, these kids think it's cool, that it's entertaining to them to assault innocent people. Think of that mindset, where we are as a nation, as a society. What do you think is going to happen when this whole thing collapses? And it's going to. That's their plans. Read the white papers. Where are we going to turn to? Hopefully, people of all colors are getting together, recognizing the problem and preparing for the problem. But this knockout game is a serious trend, and it is also a very precise barometer of the fabric of our society. I invite you again to go on the internet and look this up. You're going to find these images quite disturbing. Okay, we are talking about, let's continue with what we've been talking about the last 3 weeks, and that is the document, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And folks, what this document is all about, basically, is mechanisms and techniques of control. And you've got to understand, number one, that you have been declared the enemy, that number two, the United States is declared a battleground, that number three, the United States government that you consider the government is an insolvent for-profit corporation. You also have to understand that the Federal Reserve is a foreign for-profit banking corporation. The IRS is a private corporation of the Federal Reserve. And then if you go up the pyramid, you got the International Monetary Fund, which, by the way, my friends, is where all your income tax money goes to. You actually finance the International Monetary Fund so they can rape and pillage other countries, as John Perkins called it. And if you want to read a book on this, it's very entertaining. I invite you to read The Economic Hitman by John Perkins, who lived right across the river here in New Hampshire. So as we are studying this document, understand this is not a facade, this is reality. This is going on, it's been going on, this document was written in 1954, and as we've been studying this for the last 3 weeks, I know that a lot of people, it's filling the voids. Okay, this is why these events are happening. This is how this control mechanism took place. This is why the education system has been so dumbed down. Just a report released yesterday that basically the American 6th grade children now can't do simple math. Folks, I'm not even talking about algebra, or I'm talking simple math. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And you know, I'll tell you, I was in a store, a local store here about a week ago, and I had a money due, and I gave the gal enough money plus the change, so I got an even $10 bill back. Well, what she did when she punched it in on the cash register, which is now a computer, I had not given her the extra money and the proper change to make up that I'm going to get a $10 bill back instead of having 4 singles and change. Everybody with me? Very simple, right? You think this young person could do the simple math? Could count the change? Could say, okay, oh, he gave me 44 cents. So now I owe him 56, I'm going to owe him 56 cents in the 10? No, sir. I had to do it for her. And I had to lay it out for her so she knew I was telling the truth. And after doing it not once, not twice, but actually 3 times, she was able to understand that what I was doing was true and accurate, and I wasn't trying to rip her off. 3 times. Simple math. Counting change back to me. Couldn't do it. Why? Why? Because the children, the American school system, or as I call it, as this document calls it, the indoctrination system, has dummied down our children. This document wanted, in their own writings, they wanted the average American high school graduate to have a 6th grade reading level. Well, I say congratulations to them, because they have dumbed them down to a 4th grade reading level, according to the NEA. And how much of your property tax money goes into that indoctrination system? Okay, let's continue. Techniques for controlling people. Are you ready for this? This is by Dr. Jurgen Birch, and he's got a whole list of alphabetical degrees behind his name. Teach them not to think. Keep them entertained, drugged, and economically dependent. Not independent, dependent. Economic dependency, what is that? Debt. The difference between true education and vocational training has been cleverly blurred. Here are a few tips on how smart people can control other people, and if any of this rings a bell. The first principle of people control is not to let them know you are controlling them. If people knew, this knowledge will breed resentment and possible rebellion, which would then require brute force and terror, an old-fashioned, expensive, and not 100% certain method of control. It is easier than you think to control people indirectly, to manipulate them into thinking what you want them to think and doing what you want them to do. One basic technique is to keep them ignorant. Educated people are not as easy to manipulate. And that, my friends, is what this show is all about. The people in front of the camera, the people behind the camera, all the research that goes into it, all the time that goes into it. This is what this show is all about. Breaking the bonds of ignorance through education and through discovery and through truth. This is why we take the risk that we do. And imagine that. There is a risk in this country today for speaking truth. Educated people are not as easy to manipulate. Abolishing public education or restricting access to education would be the direct approach, but that would spill the beans. The indirect approach is to control the education they receive. It's possible to be a PhD, doctor, lawyer, businessman, journalist, or an accountant, just to name a few examples, and at the same time be an uneducated person. The difference between true education and vocational training has been cleverly blurred in our time so that we have people successfully practicing their vocations while at the same time being totally ignorant of the larger issues of the world in which they live. Folks, you're probably saying, well, how can that be? Well, let me say, what do doctors know? Doctors know what the AMA tells them and teaches them. Doctors only use information, data, methods of the AMA, American Medical Association. And what is the AMA? And if you've been watching this program for some years now, it is a Rockefeller non-for-profit organization. Look it up. We've done this show before. Okay? What do lawyers know? Lawyers know what they use for commercial law, which is controlled by private courts, commercial courts, which the law itself is commercial. Law mercantile, commercial law. It's under the gauge of admiralty law. Hence the yellow flag around the flag when you walk in the courtroom. We've gone over this before. The lawyers, the system is controlled by the bar, British, accreditation, registry. That's why attorneys are called esquires, a title of British nobility. So they're not educated. They just know what they're being conceived and controlled by the controllers. They may know how to read the documents and the language because they have a Black's Law Dictionary, but are they really aware of the system itself and the controllers? No. Do they have the degree to hang on the wall? Sure they do. Do you have to be a member of the bar to practice law in this country? Absolutely. You will play their game, and that's the only game you're allowed to play. As I say, my friends, it's not the just-is system. It's the just-us system. Let us continue. One basic technique is to keep them ignorant, as they said earlier, okay? The most obvious symptom is their absence of original thought. Ask them a question and they will end up reciting what someone else thinks or thought the answer was. Folks, I see this every day when I have conversations with people about issues. All they do is mimic or parrot whatever is on the mainstream media. You know, and I'll give you one example. I had a conversation with a very nice fella. I was down in Rhode Island recently for a funeral, and I had a conversation with a fellow I hadn't seen in literally 25 years. And we got talking about some things, and we got talking, and I brought up the Constitution, how far away we are from the Constitution. And he says to me, oh, come on, he says, you know the Constitution's a living document. Where'd he get that from? Living document. I'm going to tell you where he got it from. He got it from the TV. See, because if it's living, they couldn't just say, hey, we're destroying it, we're not using it, we're going to alter it, we're going to abolish it. They have to have a politically correct word so they can sell it to you. And living is so peaceful and uplifting. And this is what they're talking about. Okay? They sow seeds of language and deception. And all you do is mimic what they're telling you because you do not have original thought. The thought reasoning process has been taken out of our indoctrination system. Okay, let us continue. What do they think? Well, they never thought about it. Exactly my point. Their education consisted of learning how to use a library and cite sources. That greatly simplifies things for the controller because with lots of money, university endowments, foundations, grants, and ownership of the media, it is relatively easy to control what they think of as authorities, insight, and in lieu of doing their own thinking. My friends, it's easier not to think to some people. The old saying, ignorance is bliss. This is what they're talking about. They sow the seeds, and all you're set to do is mimic what they're telling you. That's all you do. Another technique is to keep them entertained. The Roman emperors did not stage circuses and gladiator contests because they didn't have a television. We have television because we don't have circuses and gladiator events. Either way, the purpose is to keep the people's minds focused on entertainment, sports, peripheral political issues. This way, you won't have to worry that they will ever figure out the real issues that allow you to control them. We're the them. Understand that. Let us continue here. And the final straw is to control a person's health. Hey! Hey, guys. Do you feel all warm and fuzzy? Huh? We got 3 segments to control a society. And what's this? The third and final straw is to control a person's health. Codex Alimentarius, the AMA, Obamacare, but they can't create a website for you to sign up. This is not happening by chance, my friends. Keep them drugged. Feed them propaganda as to what pills they can take to cover up symptoms of disease. Listen to this, my friends. Force them to take vaccinations against all kinds of imaginable and unimaginable diseases while thereby achieving a chronically depressed immune system. Now listen to these next words. Vaccines are toxins. They are foreign to a human body. No immunity can be achieved via vaccinations. It is pure myth. Now, what do we have in the vaccinations? Gee, ever wonder why the cancer rates in this country are through the roof? Can you say SV40? We have done shows and shows on this. SV40, Sierra Victor 40. Look it up. Get on the internet. Punch that in and you will see it's a cancer agent they're putting in vaccinations. Oh, this was by mistake for 34 years? The FDA approved it. Folks, you're not even allowed to know if you have organic food anymore or it's NGO food. The chemtrails as they spray us with bariums, the fluoride in the water, the processed food of no nutritional value. You think this is all happening by chance? You're the declared enemy. Let us continue. Elevate the status of doctors and acceptable health practitioners and their protocols to that of gods. And restrict natural herbs and substances until these too become drugs. Remove the people's right to choose their own therapy, and you have the perfect sheep to follow directives without the slightest question. In many ways, people will have become sheeple, incapable of original thought to understand the most basic functions of their body, or to analyze their condition for what it really is, and to select a course of action that will restore the health of their body, their mind, and their emotions to hemostasis. Hemostasis is a medical term, and it literally means of health and natural. Understand what they're saying. Just as a truly educated person is difficult to control, so too is an economically independent person. Independent. Therefore, you want to create conditions that will produce people who work for wages, since wage earners have very little control over their economic destiny. You will also want to control the monetary, credit, and banking systems. This will allow you to inflate the currency and make it next to impossible for wage earners to accumulate capital and wealth. You can also cause periodic deflation to collapse the family business, family farms, and entrepreneurs, including independent community banks. Understand, my friend, that what you know is the Great Depression, 1929 up until World War II, was all put in place, and we did a wonderful show, and we had a lot of references, and this was probably 3 years ago now, about the Great Depression and the booms and bust cycles and how they create them. And if you want to read an interesting book on it, I invite you to read by the author G. Edward Griffith, The Creature from Jekyll Island. He did a wonderful job of how they consolidated power, how they created the threat, how they created the bank runs, and how they put in all the call options, and also how they met at Jekyll Island. The bill was written by international bankers. They met secretly, and how it was signed off on December 23rd, 1913. My friends, while the Congress was away for the Christmas holiday. The Federal Reserve Act was not written in true representative legislation. It was written in secrecy, usurpably through the power brokers of the international bankers, hence the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve, the name itself, was put in by one of them participants by the name of Paul Warburg out of Germany, and basically what he did, my friends, he said, listen, we want the people to think this is part of the federal government, the U.S. government, so we're going to put the word federal in. We know we're going to confiscate all the intrinsic wealth of the nation, so we want to put the word reserve in there, so we'll sow the seed. Start sowing the seed mentally and emotionally that, oh, okay, we'll give up our gold, we'll give up our silver, we'll bond our children, but it's all in reserve. How foolish can a people be? Understand. Folks, I have to go back to the family farm because they have destroyed the family farm. And you know what the name of the act that did it? Well, one of the acts? The Freedom to Farm Act. Look up the Freedom to Farm Act. It destroyed the family farm. Just like the Patriot Act destroyed your liberties, what little you had left, because you do nothing about it. And they want to destroy the community banks because they don't want, the key word here, independent. They want all of them under the Federal Reserve System. There's only 2 banks that I know of in this country that are not part of the Federal Reserve System or the NUA, and all of them are Native American. To keep trade unions under control, you just promote a scheme that allows you to shift production jobs out of the country and bring back the products as imports. And we will call this free trade. Folks, this is in the document. This is 1954. This way, you will end up with no unions or, at most, docile unions. Now, yesterday, what did the federal judge say in Michigan? And if you haven't seen this, it was even on mainstream media because they were promoting it. This is great. This is wonderful. Even the conservative Fox News. This is a wonderful thing. What they do? The federal judge said that all private pensions can be confiscated in whole or in part by a bankrupt municipality. Yes, sir. We talked about this 1.5 years ago. There was a bill in Congress where they said the federal government, they wanted to make all private pensions. I told you, there's 2 drops of blood left in the stone. And that's your health care, and that's your private pensions. They're about to get your health care because you did nothing about it. And now, a representative of the insolvent corporation, United States government, USA Incorporated, says that that corporation has the right to go ahead and confiscate private pensions. So what did the city of Detroit do? Which is $18 billion in the hole. Oh, by the way, that's right. Their mayor is in prison for X amount of years for bribery, for extortion, for all the rest of it. They're gangsters. You know, it's interesting. I was watching a show on the old mob about a month ago. And they had this fellow who, and I forget his name, I apologize, who turned state's evidence. And at the end of the interview, now think about it, this guy's a lifetime career criminal. And at the end of the interview, he says, it no longer pays to be this is verbatim, it no longer pays to be a criminal outside of government because you can't compete with the government. Think of that. This is a lifetime criminal saying to you, number one, he's a criminal. Number two, there's a better criminal on the block. And number three, it's the United States government. And he can't compete with them. So he turned state's evidence. He joined them. Think of that. This is where we are, my friends. And by the way, what did all, and I had to go on and look around, not that I pay attention to the mainstream media. The only time I really get on the mainstream media is when I want to see what road they want to take us down. But every single station was applauding this. This is wonderful news. This is wonderful. Now Detroit will be able to confiscate, or at least help out with the $18 billion, the firemen, the policemen, the municipal workers. They're going to be able to confiscate it and tell you, if anything, what we're going to give back to you. And if you don't think that's going to just stay in Detroit, you're out of your mind. You're naive. Go talk to the firemen of Central Falls, Rhode Island. It's already happened to them. Another technique is to buy both political parties so that after a while, people will feel no matter whether they vote for candidate A or B, they will get the same policies. No surprise here. The idea, my friends, is not to vote for candidate A or candidate B, but let's start looking at candidates C, D, E, F, and G. Let's get outside that divide paradigm. You ever notice people that put political signs on their lawns or their yards that it's never like one representative from the Democratic Party or one representative from the Republican Party. It's always all Democrat or all Republican. Why? Because they are so caught up in the divide paradigm. Left or right, pro-choice, pro-abortion. Folks, why can't you see through this? Why can you not see through this divide paradigm? You're getting the same result. Has there been any difference between Bush 1, Clinton, Bush 2, Obama? They're taking us down the same road. And the only candidate that was going to make a difference, in my humble opinion, was Ron Paul. And the Republican Party flat out said he was unelectable. They weren't going to give him the position. And now we find out that he won states like Maine, Iowa, Nevada. This will create a great apathy and a belief that the political process is useless for affecting real change. Do you think that's how the average American feels today? And I will tell you, folks, it's true. It's absolutely true, but at the federal level. If they are running for anyone in a federal level, I don't care if it's senator, representative, president, vice president. First of all, we are only electing the President of the United States is nothing but the CEO of an insolvent corporation answering to the creditors being the Federal Reserve Bank. By the way, have you heard one word that the Federal Reserve lease agreement, the term, the contract, ends this December 22nd, 2013? A great opportunity is going to pass us by without the mainstream media talking one word about the number one problem that would cure our ills for this nation by gaining control of our money system again. Not one word spoken of this matter. Why? Because the media is controlled by the very same entities. If we're going to get this back, my friends, we have got to get it back at the grassroots state level. Let's get back to the 10th Amendment. Let's get back to the Constitution. Hey, what was it Amschar Rothschild said? Give me control of a nation's currency. I care not who makes its laws. Why? Because I'm controlling the issuance. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says it was up to the Congress to do that. The Congress is at fault. Congressmen don't care. They get the best medical. They're there for 2 years. They get pensions for the rest of their lives. Gee, I wonder if their pensions are going to be able to be taken over and put into the grasp of the federal government. I doubt it. Okay, let us continue, my friends. Pretty soon, you will have a population that feels completely helpless and thinks that the bad things happening to them are nobody in particular's fault, just a result of global forces or evolution or some other disembodied abstract concept. If necessary, you can offer them scapegoats. Then, and folks, I'm reading this verbatim from this document. Then you can bleed them dry. Taxes, if necessary, will do that. Let us continue. And if you don't think that this is all already at hand, I want to be real quick here. A couple of statements from some names you may recognize. This is an article that I was reading, and I figured it would be good to cover it in this, because you may wonder, how is it that they have control of the media? Of course, there's only 6 corporations that control all the media in the United States. Only 6. Or the world, I'm sorry, for that matter, the Western world. Listen to these quotes, my friends. You could get a journalist cheaper than a good call girl. They're basically the same thing, prostitutes. You could get a journalist cheaper than a good call girl. What was it that John Swinton called when at his former editor of the New York Times? At his retirement party, he had a couple of cocktails and he spoke freely. And what did he say? We read this verbatim to you years ago. What did he say? Do you remember? Because I do. Because the words ring in my head every time I see people mimicking the media. He's talking about the journalist, we are nothing more than intellectual prostitutes kneeling at the feet of Mammon. Well, why not? Because according to Deborah Davis, all right, of the Sheridan Press, you could get a journalist cheaper than a good call girl for a couple of $100s a month. This is CIA operative, discussing with Phil Graham, editor of the Washington Post, on the availability and price of journalists willing to peddle, listen to this, CIA propaganda stories. Let's go forward. The Central Intelligence Agency owns everyone of any significance in the major media. William Colby, former CIA director. Are you listening to these words? The Central Intelligence Agency owns everyone of any significance in the major media. There is quite an incredible spread of relationships. You do not need to manipulate Time magazine, for example, because they are Central Intelligence people at the management level. William B. Brady, former CIA intelligence officer, briefing members of the Senate Intelligence Committee. There is quite an incredible spread of relationships. You don't need to manipulate Time magazine, for example, because they are all Central Intelligence Agency people at the management level. Let's continue. The agency's relationship with the New York Times was by far its most valuable among newspapers. According to CIA officials, it was General Times policy to provide assistance to the CIA whenever possible. This was written by Carl Burstein's book, The CIA and the Media. Senator William Proxmire has pegged the number of employees of the federal intelligence community at 148,000. Though Proxmire's number itself is a conservative one. The intelligence community is officially defined as including only those organizations that are members of the U.S. Intelligence Board. A dozen other agencies, charged with both foreign and domestic intelligence chores are not encompassed by that term. The number of intelligence workers employed by the federal government is not 148,000, but some undetermined multiple of that number. Jim Hogan, former spook, CIA. That's how he signs. For some time, I have been disturbed by the way the CIA has been diverted from its original assignment. It has become an operational and at times a policy-making arm of the government. I never had any thought that when I set up the CIA that it would be injected into peacetime cloak and dagger operations. Former President Harry Truman, 22 December 1963, speaking about the JFK assassination. What do you think he's telling you between the lines here, my friends? He's speaking about the JFK assassination. And he says, for some time I have been disturbed by the way the CIA has been diverted from its original assignment. It has become an operational and at times a policy-making arm of the government. I never had any thought that when I set up the CIA that it would be injected into peacetime cloak and dagger operations. Former President Harry Truman, 22 December 1963, speaking in an op-ed section of the Washington Post about the JFK assassination. Do you think he's trying to tell the American people who are responsible for that assassination? Okay, folks, I think you get the main idea. I'm going to go on to this document. I'm going to continue with the document. I want to go back to this one statement that was made by Huxley, Aldous Huxley. He's talking about this document here, okay? The goal is to produce a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away, but will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda and or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. Can you say Ritalin, Prozac, all the rest of them? Okay. We have quite a few pages here. Hopefully I have some time to get into the meat of this. This is basically, my friends, the diversion summary. And I'm going to try to stay with this because of the time's sake. Media. Keep the adult public attention diverted away from real social issues and captivate them by matters of no real importance. Schools. Keep the young public ignorant of real mathematics, real economics, real law, and of most important, real history. You think they've accomplished all the above so far? Entertainment. Keep the public entertained below a 6th grade reading level. They've done very well with that, my friends. High school students can't do simple math. I was explaining earlier. They can't count change back to you. Take that little machine away from them, they're lost. The thought of reasoning process is gone. And their reading level, proudly, according to the NEA, is a 4th grade reading level from when a high school student graduated 4 years ago. Work. Keep the public busy, 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 busy with no time to think. Back on the farm with the other animals. Okay. Media. Let us continue. How many of the impulses from the media are actually for anything positive? Are impulses contributing to your further ascension or personal development? Do not enriching lives. Attention is constantly diverted away from real issues, locally to things far away, which have no chance of really knowing anything about and furthermore doing anything about it, and this keeps them in a state of powerlessness. Schools. Indoctrination. Folks, you think I just make this stuff up when I call it the public indoctrination system? Indoctrination is a better word since children will be conditioned to what they must think and not how to think or what thinking actually means and includes. We will teach, hyphenated, indoctrinate our children rather than make them understand the basics of life. Wow. And how's them property taxes treating you this year, folks? Huh? Doing real well? Administrators making $165,000 a year so they can continue this indoctrination program. Folks, this is why I call it the public fool system, not public school system. Entertainment. Junk food for thought is exactly what is going on in the future. People will love reality shows. And you thought reality shows were a new thing. You thought reality shows were a new thing. This is 1954. Where they can watch so-called life, and their lives through this rather than exploring and experiencing their life for themselves. TV is probably the best hypnotist of the world. Besides, of course, the whole mobile telephone communication system. 1954. Coming wireless technologies and broadcasting systems, including HARP, Highly Advanced Aurora Research Program. Now listen to this. Designed to manipulate and control the frequencies of our brains so that they do not become too clever or wake up too much, since then they see through all, excuse me, let me read this verbatim again. Since then they will see through all the illusions. TV will make their brain waves slow down and make them more vulnerable to be manipulated and actually induced directly into the subconscious without them ever knowing what happened. It is difficult to describe, but we see the result in the street and in the world even today. Okay. Let us continue. Work. I'm sorry. They continue a little bit about TV here. Suppression and deconnection are the words that they're looking here. Work. Basically, folks, I've said a little bit earlier about being busy, busy, busy. Keep them very, very busy. They absorb their sweat equity. Keep them busy. Don't give them time to contemplate and think if they have the means to. Okay, and let's talk about the quiet war, because this is their own writing. It shoots situations instead of bullets, propelled by data processing instead of grains of gunpowder from a computer instead of a gun, operated by a computer programmer instead of a marksman, under the orders of a banking magnate instead of a military general. Oh, they got that right. It makes no obvious noises, causes no obvious physical injuries, and does not obviously interfere with one's social life. Okay, but I'm running out of time here, my friends. This document gets into a little bit about the matrix of controlled frequencies and vibrations. And there's a lot of science here. I'm not going to have the time to get into a lot of that right now, but what they are basically talking about, my friends, and we did a whole show on HOP. As a matter of fact, we showed a documentary on HOP some years ago. And basically, my friends, all these gigantic, like Superstorm Sandy and all these things that have taken place, these gigantic weather patterns and so forth. Folks, they want you to believe it's global warming when actually the temperatures are going the other way. Oh, and by the way, did you see what happened 3 weeks ago? The United Nations made a statement, and I'm laughing because we might as well just go, I feel like Galileo here. Hey, the world is round, not flat. But they made a statement, a policy statement, that the sun has no effect on the weather or ecosystem of the earth. Folks, it's the #1 effect of the ecosystem of the weather or the climate on the earth. Climatologists, meteorologists, scientists, common people know this. But the UN has come out and said it has no effect on the earth. And don't forget, according to the Club of Rome, who is the enemy themselves? Man. They would come up with the global warming. But of course, now they've changed the language on this. Have you noticed this? It's no more global warming. Now it's climate change. Why? Because the temperatures haven't been warming. The temperatures have actually decreased on average in the last 12 years. And now that the sunspots are low, according to scientists, it's going to be even colder. As a matter of fact, we've had a very cold November. We've actually, according to some people in meteorology that I know, we've actually had some December and January average temperatures here in November. So folks, understand this is so you can, oh, it ain't the sun, because we have to believe these gods, as they call them, the doctors and the lawyers. Make them into gods. It's actually in the document. Make them into gods. Okay, let us continue here. That gets into a little bit about the agenda, implementing, and let's get into a little bit about this matrix of control, frequencies and vibrations. And I don't have all the time for the science, but listen to this. By implementing a microchip in every person, you can direct and control a human being like a robot. Like a robot. By implementing a microchip in every person, you can direct and control a human being like a robot. The public may instinctively feel that something is wrong, but because of the technical nature of the silent weapon, they cannot express their feelings in a rational way or handle the problem with intelligence. Therefore, they do not know how to cry for help, and do not know how to associate with others to defend themselves against it. One of the first things in which the wireless society and the mobile phones will do is disconnect is the inability for coherent thinking. It is quite practical to suppress people and keep them ignorant about the real world and what is really going on. What they are experiencing all over the planet is that people turn into zombies. 1954. Zombie attacks, zombie attacks. You're the zombies. Or consuming sheep. This is their own language, my friends. Who are more or less in resistance most of the time and spend much of their awakening hours doing things of no big importance, mostly geared to entertainment. Depression will rise. People will seem to be very sad and apathetic without much hope and love in their eyes in general. Folks, I tell you, I'm in the medical field and I see this constantly, particularly with young people. Particularly with young people. The majority will be disconnected from the purpose and meaning of life. And listen to this, and follow the rest of the herd without asking real questions inwardly to themselves or to find out from within whether or not they are on or off track. People are in general not superior, enthusiastic, or optimistic and wish to contribute and make a difference for the good of all and everyone. People will become more and more egotistic, meaning the fear of dualism is their control factor, because when being disconnected from spirit and soul, what is also known as suffering, from switching of the brain, they lose ability to be in contact with their deeper feelings and their intuition, and with their coherent thinking and close contact between the heart, the brain, and common sense will become a rarity. When a silent weapon is applied gradually, the public will adjust and or adapt to its presence, and it will learn to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure, psychological via economic, becomes too great. Unbelievable. Folks, I only have 5 minutes here, so I've really got to move along, and I'm sorry about this. The other thing they talk about here, mobile phone radiation. And they also get into, illness, cancers, By the way, don't forget, cancer is the soft kill program. Folks, I'm going to skip along here. Okay, they also get into a little bit about achieving basically how to disengage us from actual rational thinking, the thought process. Disengaging their minds, sabotaging their mental activities by providing a low-quality program of public education in mathematics, logic, systems design, and economics, and by discouraging technical creativity. And how do they do that? Well, first of all, you're not a hero if you can create. You're a hero if you can dribble a basketball. You're a hero if you can throw a baseball at 90 miles an hour. You're a hero if you can look like a call girl on TV and sing. But you're not a hero to create benefit for human man. And create and provide a low-quality program of education. They should have, in mathematics, logic, system design, and economics, and history, they should have said, and make it very costly. Engage in their emotions. Increase in their self-indulgence and their indulgence in emotional and physical activities by A, unrelenting emotional affrontations and attacks, mental and emotional rape. This is their own words. By a way of constant barrage of sex, violence, and wars in the media, especially on TV and the newspapers. Giving them what they will become to desire in excess of junk food for thought, and deprave them of what they really need. Folks, this is in their own document. Number 3, rewrite history and law and subject them to the public, to the deviant creation, thus being able to shift their thinking from personal needs to highly fabricated outside priorities. These preclude their interest in and discovery of the silent weapons of social automation technology. The general rule is that there is profit in confusion. The more confusion, the more profit. Therefore, the best approach is to create problems and then offer the solution. Can you say the Hegelian dialectic, which we have been speaking about on this program from day one? I see it every day, every single day. Little events, everyday common events, 9/11, big events. Every day I see this. This is their modus operandi. Unbelievable. Okay, let us continue. Education works best as indoctrination. Make the majority suffer from disconnection syndrome. Oh, that's a nice word, disconnection syndrome. And blockages in the energy system of the body. People will be misled and misinformed with information. One thing today, the opposite tomorrow, which rapes both the mind and their feelings. People get caught in the intellect and the ego and the pain body, which is being nourished by hypnotic and fear-generation information from the media. Okay, folks, I think I'm just about out of time here. I'm going to get into one last thing, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it hits home to you, the realization. Understand, this is 1954, okay? Listen to this last bit of information. Put silicon chips in people at the end. We are experiencing the same situation, and they are trying we will be trying to market and create a lot of fear and nice explanations and make it so nice to have microchips in meat, then clothes, then animals, and finally human beings. Order out of chaos. Describe the creation of enormous confusion on all levels, and then deliver solutions to all the confusion. I think that's enough said. I think you have an understanding. My friends, first of all, two things. One, this is 1954. Think of the mindset they're in. And two, look at the terms of technology in 1954. Were there mobile cell phones? No. Okay? So you've got to understand this is where we are. Unfortunately, my friends, we are out of time. As always, we are very, very thankful you take the time from your busy day to join us. And we know you're busy. Why? Make them work, work, work so they don't have time to think. My friends, as always, we close in reminding you that your government is your responsibility. And thank you for watching.
Got to read between the lines. Got to read. Got to read.